Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today, we're thrilled to introduce you to The Gilded Thread. This is a captivating story of Ethan, a talented fashion designer navigating a world of workplace rivalry and unexpected love. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button. We invite you to listen and discover her journey. The air in the Evergreen Group's opulent boardroom hung thick with ambition and the scent of freshly brewed coffee, a stark contrast to the nervous tremor in Ethan's fingers. This wasn't just any interview. It was the final, decisive hurdle separating her from her lifelong dream, a position as a junior designer at one of the fashion world's most prestigious conglomerates. Her heart, a frantic hummingbird, pounded against her ribs. She was ready. Her meticulously crafted portfolio, a symphony of fabric swatches and vibrant sketches, lay open on the polished mahogany table, a testament to years of tireless dedication. The moment arrived. Ms. Ethan, the lead interviewer, a woman with eyes like polished obsidian, intoned, "Please present your final collection." Ethan's smile, though genuine, felt fragile. She reached for the USB drive, a tiny vessel holding months of her soul, her sweat, her most audacious visions. But her fingers closed on empty air. A sudden, cold dread slithered down her spine. Her gaze swept the table, then the floor. Nothing. A ripple of polite murmuring spread amongst the interview panel. Had she dropped it? Left it behind? Panic, a cruel vice, began to tighten around her chest. Just then, the projector, a hulking metallic beast, flickered, coughed, and died with a pathetic wheeze, plunging the presentation screen into an ominous black. A sharp intake of breath collectively escaped the room. This wasn't just a hurdle, it was an ambush. A lesser soul might have crumbled, the weight of the moment crushing their aspirations into dust. But Ethan, whose quiet demeanor belied a spirit forged in steel, found a strange calm descending upon her. She remembered her mother's voice, a soft whisper from a past cloaked in shadow. Creativity isn't just about what you make, child. It's about how you adapt when everything falls apart. Taking a deep, fortifying breath, Ethan's eyes, usually a calm hazel, sparkled with an unexpected defiance. Without a word, she moved to the large whiteboard at the side of the room. With a swift, fluid motion, she picked up a marker. Her hand, guided by an unseen force, began to dance across the pristine white surface. Lines, curves, and silhouettes materialized with breathtaking speed and precision, transforming the blank canvas into a vibrant testament to her vision. She sketched the intricate draping of a gown, the sharp angles of a modern suit, the delicate embroidery of an evening dress. As she drew, her voice, initially a soft murmur, gained strength and clarity. She wove a narrative around her impromptu sketches, describing the textures, the flow of the fabrics, the emotional journey each piece represented. Her words painted pictures where the projector had failed, breathing life into a collection that existed only in her mind and on the evolving whiteboard. The panel, initially bewildered, now sat transfixed, their gazes glued to her every stroke, her every passionate inflection. She wasn't just presenting clothes, she was performing an act of pure, unadulterated creation, turning chaos into captivating art. Her audacious display left the boardroom stunned. When she finished, a beat of silence hung in the air, heavy with unspoken admiration. The lead interviewer, her obsidian eyes now gleaming with something akin to respect, finally spoke, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Ms. Ethan, that was unexpected and truly remarkable. Welcome to Evergreen Group." The relief that washed over Ethan was palpable, a warm wave chasing away the icy grip of fear. Yet, even amidst her elation, a tiny, unsettling question lingered. Who had tampered with her USB? And why? Her triumph, however, was merely the prologue to a new chapter of challenges. Ethan's joy was short-lived as she discovered her placement in a department that felt less like a creative hub and more like a viper's nest. The unspoken animosity was a palpable thing, a chill that seeped into the very bones of the office. Colleagues, particularly the more established ones, saw her as an unwelcome disruption, a youthful threat to their carefully constructed hierarchies. Whispers followed her like shadows, dismissive glances pierced her back, and crucial project details seemed to vanish into thin air just before she needed them. But the most potent venom came from Tiffany. Tiffany, a designer with a carefully cultivated image of charm and sophistication, possessed eyes that held a sharp, calculating glint. She was beautiful, poised, and utterly ruthless, a shimmering mirage of perfection that concealed a heart of pure ambition. From their very first interaction, Ethan felt the sting of Tiffany's condescension. A dismissive wave of the hand, a saccharine smile that never quite reached her eyes. Tiffany had aspired to be the youngest designer, the prodigy, and Ethan's arrival was a usurpation she could not abide. The air around Tiffany seemed to crackle with an unspoken declaration of war, a silent promise of future battles. Just days into her new role, a new gauntlet was thrown down. The head of the department, a stoic woman named Miss Albright, whose face was perpetually etched with an air of long-suffering weariness, summoned Ethan to her office. "Ms. Ethan," she began, her voice devoid of warmth, "you've shown unconventional talent. Perhaps you're suited for unconventional tasks. We have a project, Reborn. It's been dormant for years. A colossal failure. No one else has touched it. I'm assigning it to you." Miss Albright's eyes, cold and assessing, seemed to challenge Ethan to refuse. It was clear, this wasn't an assignment. It was a test, a punishment, a deliberate attempt to bury her under the weight of past failures. The Reborn project, a legendary albatross around the department's neck, was whispered about in hushed tones, a graveyard of lost careers. Ethan was meant to fail, to be swallowed whole by its infamy. Yet, as Ethan clutched the thick file, its pages filled with outdated sketches and disheartening financial reports, a flicker of something akin to defiance sparked within her. This wasn't just a dead project. It was a blank canvas, an opportunity for true resurrection. She felt a familiar pull, a resonance with the forgotten potential within the pages. She would breathe life into Reborn, not just for her career, but for something deeper, something that whispered from the forgotten corners of her own past. Late that night, long after the last lights had flickered off in the Evergreen Group building, Ethan sat hunched over her desk, poring over the Reborn files. The silence of the deserted office was profound, broken only by the rustle of papers and the soft hum of the air conditioning. Suddenly, muffled voices drifted from the slightly ajar door of the adjacent executive lounge. "Did you hear?" one whispered. "Richard Sterling is getting restless. The Phantom of Finance, they call him. He's threatening to pull some serious capital if we don't deliver something groundbreaking soon. This Reborn project, if it actually is reborn, might be our last chance to impress him." The other voice chuckled. "Good luck with that. It's cursed." Ethan froze. Richard Sterling. The name resonated deep within her, stirring a long-dormant memory. She instinctively reached for the delicate silver locket she always wore, a relic from her mother, her only tangible link to a past shrouded in mystery. Her thumb traced the faint, almost imperceptible engraving on its back, a stylized logo, now barely visible, of a long-defunct investment fund, and beneath it, etched in flowing script, the single, enigmatic word, sterling. Her mother had rarely spoken of her life before Ethan, her past a carefully guarded secret. But this locket, this whispered name, it suggested a connection far more profound than mere coincidence. A shiver, not of fear, but of thrilling discovery, ran down her spine. The Reborn Project, her unexpected entry into Evergreen, the elusive Richard Sterling, and this ancient locket. They were all threads, seemingly disparate, but now weaving into a single gilded tapestry. Ethan looked at the dark, silent cityscape outside her window, a vast expanse of unknown possibilities. She realized then that her journey at Evergreen Group was not just about design. It was about unearthing a truth, a legacy, and perhaps a destiny she never knew existed. The night deepened, but for Ethan, a new dawn of understanding had just begun to break. The Reborn Project, once a tombstone to faded aspirations, began to hum under Ethan's touch. She delved into its dusty archives, not with dread, but with the quiet intensity of an archaeologist uncovering forgotten treasures. Where others saw failure, she saw untapped potential, a silhouette waiting to be sculpted. Her fingers, accustomed to the smooth glide of a pencil over paper, now danced across fabric samples, imagining textures that would speak of rebirth. She spent countless evenings in the silent workshop, the hum of sewing machines her only companion, often losing herself until the first tentative rays of dawn peeked through the high windows, painting streaks of pale gold across the studio floor. This was her sanctuary, a fortress against the subtle hostilities that permeated the main office. The whispers, however, followed her like persistent shadows. Tiffany, a woman whose beauty was as sharp and polished as a freshly cut diamond, seemed to embody the very essence of corporate jealousy. Her smile, a meticulously crafted facade, rarely reached her eyes, which held a perpetual glint of calculation. Tiffany, accustomed to being the sun around which all lesser stars revolved, watched Ethan with a venomous curiosity. Ethan's quiet competence, her ability to thrive despite the cold shoulder of her colleagues, was a direct affront to Tiffany's carefully constructed dominance. Every successful stitch, every glimmer of progress Ethan made on Reborn felt like a personal insult to Tiffany. "Look at her," Tiffany would murmur to her closest confidants, Sarah and Chloe, her voice dripping with mock concern. Burning the midnight oil, so dedicated, or perhaps just desperate to prove herself to certain high-flying executives. Her gaze would flick conspiratorially towards the glass-walled corner office on the top floor, the domain of Richard Sterling. Sarah, a mousy woman with a perpetually nervous twitch, would nod vigorously, while Chloe, bolder and more openly malicious, would add, "Desperate enough to charm her way in, I hear. You know how those new hires are." The words, though seemingly harmless, were insidious, designed to paint Ethan as opportunistic, a wolf in sheep's clothing, rather than a genuinely talented designer. The department head, Miss Albright, remained a formidable, inscrutable presence. Her face, a mask of professional detachment, offered no warmth, no encouragement. She oversaw Ethan's progress with the unblinking gaze of a hawk, her silence often more unnerving than outright criticism. Ethan felt like she was constantly walking a tightrope, every step scrutinized, every move a potential misstep. Yet it was this very pressure that refined her, sharpening her focus, making her even more resilient. She found solace in the quiet hum of her creativity, a defiant melody against the dissonant chorus of skepticism. The unveiling of the Reborn collection was set for Evergreen Group's exclusive internal showcase, a litmus test for every designer, a private affair attended by top executives and, crucially, the company's most influential investors. Ethan felt the familiar pre-show jitters, a mixture of exhilaration and raw vulnerability. She had poured her heart into Reborn, transforming its neglected fabrics into garments that spoke of resilience, of beauty found in unexpected places. The collection, a daring fusion of minimalist elegance and unexpected vibrant accents, was a testament to her belief that true beauty lay not in perfection, but in the courage to evolve. The showcase itself was a whirlwind of hushed conversations and the soft rustle of expensive fabrics. Each designer presented their creations, some receiving polite applause, others lukewarm nods. Then came Reborn. As Ethan's models glided onto the runway, a collective murmur swept through the room. The designs were unlike anything Evergreen had seen, a breath of fresh air, bold yet understated, elegant yet deeply emotive. The muted tones of despair had been replaced by a palette of hopeful new beginnings, soft grays interwoven with flashes of azure, deep forest greens contrasting with delicate rose gold. The audience, accustomed to predictable luxury, found themselves captivated. And then it happened. A figure detached himself from the shadows at the back of the room. Richard Sterling. The name itself was a whisper of power, a legend whispered through the halls of finance. He was a man cloaked in an aura of formidable intensity, his sharp features often set in an expression of detached contemplation. Rumors painted him as a recluse, a shrewd businessman who rarely graced such events. Yet, here he was, his piercing gaze, like a laser beam, fixed solely on Ethan's collection. His very presence commanded attention, a silent storm in an otherwise placid sea. As the final model exited, a ripple of genuine applause erupted. But it was Richard Sterling's reaction that truly electrified the room. He walked directly onto the runway, his movements deliberate, his presence dwarfing the elegant mannequins. He didn't just look, he examined each piece, his fingers brushing against the fabric, his eyes scrutinizing every stitch, every detail. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Then he turned. His eyes, the color of deep, unfathomable oceans, met Ethan's across the hushed room. A flicker of something passed between them. Recognition? Admiration? It was fleeting, yet profoundly unsettling. He approached her, his steps resonating like distant thunder. Tiffany, standing nearby, stiffened, her carefully constructed composure threatening to shatter. "Miss Ethan." Richard Sterling's voice was a low timbre, surprisingly warm, yet imbued with an unmistakable authority. "Your work, it transcends mere design. It speaks of something deeper. Resilience. Hope. It is remarkable." He extended a hand. Richard Sterling. Ethan's hand, usually steady, trembled slightly as she met his firm grip. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. It means a great deal." His touch sent a curious current through her, a mix of awe and something more akin to recognition, as if they had met before, not in this lifetime, but in the forgotten echoes of another. She felt a magnetic pull toward him, a connection she couldn't explain, a feeling that went beyond mere professional admiration. His presence was like a supernova, illuminating everything around him, and in that moment, she felt irrevocably drawn into his orbit. The encounter ignited a firestorm within Evergreen Group. Tiffany, who had watched the exchange with barely concealed fury, felt her carefully constructed world begin to crumble. "Remarkable," she spat to Sarah later,
her voice laced with venom. He said remarkable to that newcomer? What does she know about design? She just got lucky with a discarded project. Her face, usually so composed, contorted with a mixture of rage and wounded pride. The idea that someone else, especially Ethan, could capture Richard Sterling's attention was a bitter pill she couldn't swallow. Tiffany, who had always believed herself destined for Sterling's attention, felt a profound sense of injustice. Her ambition, once a guiding star, now became a corrosive acid, eating away at her. She had meticulously cultivated her image, her connections, believing that these were the keys to unlocking power and influence.
Ethan's effortless talent and Richard's unexpected favor were a direct affront to everything Tiffany stood for. She viewed Ethan not just as a professional rival, but as a personal enemy, a thief who had stolen the spotlight that rightly belonged to her. "This won't stand," Tiffany vowed, her eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. "She thinks she can waltz in here and take what's mine? She'll learn. They all will." Her words were a chilling promise, a declaration of war hidden beneath a veneer of professional rivalry. She began to mobilize her allies, whispering poison into their ears, twisting facts, painting Ethan as a scheming opportunist who was seducing the phantom of finance purely for personal gain. The office, already a den of subtle hostilities, transformed into a covert battleground. Files would disappear from Ethan's desk, crucial email attachments would be deleted, and anonymous notes filled with thinly veiled threats would mysteriously appear in her locker. The air became heavy with unspoken accusations, with the constant threat of sabotage. Ethan felt the shift, the palpable increase in animosity. The atmosphere was a suffocating cloak of resentment, every glance a dagger, every hushed conversation a potential trap. Yet she refused to cower. Instead, the antagonism fueled a cold resolve within her. She worked even harder, double-checking everything, meticulously backing up her files, learning to trust her instincts above all else. She knew this was a battle for more than just a job. It was a battle for her integrity, her very soul. The gilded thread of her destiny, she realized, was not just woven with dreams, but also with danger, and she was determined to unravel its every secret. The game had truly begun, and Ethan, though a pawn in the grand scheme, was determined to become a queen. The aftershocks of the reborn showcase rippled through Evergreen Group, unsettling the placid surface of corporate decorum. Richard Sterling's public praise had carved a deeper chasm between Ethan and her envious colleagues. Tiffany, whose ambition now pulsed like a toxic vein, saw Ethan's success not as a merit, but as a calculated maneuver, a blatant usurpation of her rightful place. Her disdain, once veiled, now flickered in her eyes like untamed wildfire. The anonymous notes, the mysteriously deleted files, the subtle sabotages, they intensified, becoming more frequent, more brazen. Ethan felt the weight of their collective animosity pressing down on her, a suffocating cloak woven from envy and malice. Yet, amidst the chilling undercurrents of professional jealousy, an unexpected warmth began to bloom. Richard Sterling, a man whose presence usually commanded a room through sheer imposing silence, found himself drawn to Ethan. His initial admiration for her talent had deepened into something more profound. He observed her from afar, a silent sentinel witnessing her quiet resilience against the tide of animosity. He saw the way her brow furrowed in concentration, the quiet passion in her eyes when she spoke of fabric and form, the unwavering dignity with which she bore the snubs and slights of her peers. She was a singular star in a constellation of predictable luminaries. Their interactions, initially brief and purely professional, began to lengthen.
Richard would often accidentally find himself in the design studio late in the evenings, ostensibly to review other projects, but his gaze would inevitably drift towards Ethan's desk. He'd offer seemingly casual advice on a design concept, a quiet word of encouragement on her progress, or simply share a rare, genuine smile. These moments, fleeting yet potent, became tiny islands of solace for Ethan in the turbulent sea of her new workplace. She began to anticipate his presence, a subtle quickening of her pulse whenever his shadow fell across her drawing board. His eyes, once perceived as cold and distant, now held a depth of understanding that resonated deeply within her. It was a silent conversation, a burgeoning connection that transcended the sterile confines of their professional roles.
One evening, as Ethan wrestled with a particularly stubborn design element for an upcoming bridal line, Richard approached her desk. The studio was almost deserted, the air hushed, almost intimate. "Still at it, Ms. Ethan," he murmured, his voice softer than usual. Ethan looked up, a slight flush rising on her cheeks. "Just trying to coax life from this stubborn silk, Mr. Sterling. It refuses to drape the way I envision." He leaned closer, his proximity a subtle warmth. "Sometimes the most beautiful things resist until you truly understand their nature. Don't force it. Listen to the fabric." His eyes met hers, and for a long moment, the world outside their small bubble of quiet understanding faded. It was a gaze that held unspoken admiration, a gentle encouragement that spoke volumes. In that moment, she felt a profound sense of connection, a shared understanding that went beyond words. She felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long time. This burgeoning connection, subtle as it was, did not escape Tiffany's hawk-like vigilance. She had her spies, quiet whispers that carried snippets of conversation, fleeting glimpses of Richard lingering near Ethan's desk. Her jealousy, now a festering wound, began to infect her judgment. Richard Sterling was her target, the ultimate prize. Ethan, in Tiffany's twisted perception, was not just stealing professional recognition, but attempting to steal her future. "She's playing him," Tiffany hissed to Chloe one afternoon, her nails digging into the arm of her plush office chair. "Biding her time, playing the innocent prodigy, but I see through her." Chloe, always eager to please, nodded, eyes wide with feigned understanding. "It's obvious, Tiffany. He's just impressed by her novelty. It won't last." But Tiffany knew, deep down, that it was more than novelty. It was something she couldn't replicate, a genuine spark that burned brighter than any manufactured charm. And that, she knew, was her gravest threat. The biggest news to sweep through Evergreen was the announcement of the annual Grand Gala of Philanthropy. It wasn't just a social event. It was the event of the year, a dazzling display of wealth, influence, and fashion, co-hosted by Evergreen Group and various elite charities. The ultimate honor for any designer was to create the collection for this gala, a career-defining moment. Everyone knew Tiffany had been lobbying for it for months, her portfolio bursting with designs she believed were destined for that stage. So, when Miss Albright's email landed in every designer's inbox, the collective gasp was almost audible. The lead designer for the Grand Gala collection was Ethan. A stunned silence descended upon the design floor, quickly followed by a cacophony of whispers. Tiffany's face, usually a mask of flawless composure, contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. Her hands clenched, knuckles white, as if she were trying to crush the very air around her. The gala was hers, the recognition, the spotlight, the chance to impress Richard Sterling. It was all meticulously planned to be hers. And now it was stolen by the quiet girl who sketched on whiteboards. "This is an outrage,"
Tiffany stormed into Miss Albright's office, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. How can she be chosen? She's a junior. I've been working on proposals for this for months. Miss Albright, unfazed, merely steepled her fingers. Mr. Sterling himself made the final decision, Mrs. Tiffany. He was particularly impressed by Miss Ethan's unique vision and her proven ability to reborn a project that others had given up on. He believes her style aligns perfectly with the philanthropic spirit of the gala. The mention of Richard Sterling's name twisted the knife deeper into Tiffany's already raw ego. Tiffany emerged from the office, her eyes blazing, a predatory glint replacing the usual calculation. Ethan, engrossed in sketching a preliminary gown for the gala, felt a cold shadow fall over her. Tiffany loomed over her desk, her voice a low, dangerous purr. "Enjoy your little moment in the sun, darling. It's fleeting. Some things are just too big for little hands to handle."
And some people just don't know their place. The words were a thinly veiled threat, a promise of impending doom. The pressure mounted. Designing for the grand gala was a monumental task, demanding not only creative genius, but meticulous planning, coordination with various departments, and the flawless execution of every detail. Ethan, though exhilarated, felt the immense weight of the responsibility. She threw herself into the work, spending countless hours in the studio, sketching, refining, sourcing the finest fabrics, pouring her entire being into creating a collection that would truly capture the essence of hope and renewal, themes close to her heart, given her own journey. Meanwhile, Tiffany's insidious campaign intensified. She rallied her loyalists, Sarah and Chloe, along with a few other disgruntled designers who resented Ethan's rapid ascent. They formed a clandestine alliance, their meetings held in hushed tones in empty conference rooms, their eyes gleaming with malicious intent. Their plan was simple, yet devastating: sabotage the gala collection. Not just minor annoyances, but something that would publicly humiliate Ethan, expose her as an imposter, and irrevocably damage her reputation. The ultimate goal? Destroy Ethan and reclaim Tiffany's perceived rightful place in Richard Sterling's eyes. Their target? The final collection presentation, just days before the gala itself. This was the last internal review, where the completed garments would be showcased to the board and major stakeholders before the grand event. Tiffany's plan was audacious. They would replace Ethan's meticulously crafted original designs with a set of outdated, poorly executed replicas at the last possible moment. The chaos and embarrassment would be unimaginable. One late evening, as Ethan finally packed up her materials, exhausted but satisfied, she noticed a faint, lingering scent in the studio, a cloying, sickly sweet perfume that Tiffany often wore. Her instincts, honed by weeks of subtle harassment, screamed danger. A small detail, easily dismissed, but it prickled at the back of her mind. She paused, her eyes sweeping across her workspace, a sudden unease settling over her. Her original sketches, neatly bundled, lay on her main design table, ready for the final inspection. A fleeting image, a flicker of suspicion crossed her mind. What if? Against her usual meticulous routine, and driven by an inexplicable premonition, Ethan decided to create digital backups of all her final designs, not just on the main server, but on a secured cloud drive and a personal encrypted USB. It was a laborious process, taking her until the early hours of the morning, but an unseen hand seemed to guide her, whispering warnings into the quiet corners of her mind. This meticulousness, this almost paranoid attention to detail, was a direct consequence of the constant psychological warfare waged against her.
It was a lifeline she unknowingly cast into the turbulent waters ahead. As she left the deserted studio, the silent hum of the city greeting her, Ethan clutched her small silver locket. The name Sterling felt almost warm against her skin. The stakes had never been higher, not just for her career, but for her very identity, for the future she was now unwittingly weaving with the enigmatic man who held the key to her company's destiny, and perhaps her own. The grand gala loomed, a glittering battleground where triumph and ruin hung in the balance, a stage set for a collision of ambition, betrayal, and burgeoning desire. The air in the grand gala preview room was thick with anticipation, a vibrant hum of excitement mingling with the subtle tension of high stakes. This was the final internal showcase, Ethan's moment to shine, or to fall spectacularly. Tiffany, lurking in the periphery with Sarah and Chloe, watched Ethan like a predator. Her eyes, usually cool and calculating, now burned with a barely contained triumph. She imagined Ethan's face crumpling as the inferior designs were unveiled, her reputation dissolving like mist in the harsh morning sun. The sweet, cloying scent of Tiffany's perfume, a phantom from the previous night, still clung faintly to the air, a subtle signature of her malicious intent.
Ethan, a picture of quiet confidence, stood beside the racks of her grand gala collection. Each garment was a testament to her vision, a symphony of fabric and form designed to evoke hope and renewal. She had poured her soul into every stitch, every delicate bead. A quick mental checklist. All original designs, meticulously arranged. A shiver of premonition, however, still danced along her nerves, a lingering echo of that unsettling perfume. Just minutes before the board members and key investors were due to arrive, a junior assistant, a young woman named Lily, darted nervously towards Ethan. Lily was new, timid, often overlooked, but her eyes, wide with panic, held a desperate urgency. "Miss Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I think something's wrong. I just went to check on the lighting for the presentation, and I saw Tiffany and Miss Albright in here earlier. They looked shifty. And then I noticed a subtle difference in the tags on your dresses." Lily, though easily intimidated, possessed a keen eye for detail and an almost photographic memory for garment tags. Ethan's heart gave a sudden lurch. Tiffany and Miss Albright? Together? A cold dread seeped into her bones. She moved swiftly, her hand brushing along the silken gowns. Her fingers, sensitive from years of working with fabrics, immediately detected the subtle shift in the weave, the slight difference in the labels. These weren't her original hand-embroidered tags. These were cheap, machine-stitched replicas. A wave of sickening realization washed over her. They had actually done it. The audacity, the sheer malice of it took her breath away. Her designs, her dreams, were about to be replaced by a pathetic charade. Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to consume her. But then, a voice, calm and resolute, resonated within her. Adapt when everything falls apart. She remembered the long night she had spent, driven by an unshakable premonition, meticulously backing up every design. "Lily," Ethan said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, "I need your help. Do you have a laptop immediately?" Lily, though still trembling, nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and burgeoning loyalty. She was tired of Tiffany's tyranny, the constant atmosphere she created. This was her chance to do something right. She quickly retrieved her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Go to my cloud drive, folder Gala Originals. Download everything, now," Ethan instructed, her mind racing.
Then, find the main server backup, the one marked Final Presentation. We need to overwrite the current display data with the original files. We have minutes. As Lily worked frantically, a small group of board members began to filter in, their murmurs growing louder. Tiffany, seeing them, emerged from the shadows, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She sauntered past Ethan, her perfume a suffocating cloud. "Ready for your big moment, darling," she purred, her eyes gleaming with malice. Ethan met her gaze, a glacial calm settling over her features. "Always ready, Tiffany, and I believe the interpretation will be quite clear." Just as Miss Albright prepared to introduce the collection, Lily, with a triumphant gasp, declared, "Done, Miss Ethan, all originals restored." A shiver of relief, cold as spring water, ran through Ethan. She glanced at the screen, confirming the data. The models, oblivious to the high-stakes drama, began to take their positions, their faces a mixture of serene confidence and anticipation. The presentation began. As the first model stepped onto the runway, showcasing a gown of shimmering silver and deep sapphire, a wave of genuine awe swept through the room.
The designs were exquisite, modern yet timeless. The detail, the craftsmanship, the sheer artistry, it was undeniable. Tiffany's smug smile slowly, painstakingly began to crack. Her eyes darted from the runway to the screen, then back to the dresses. These were not the crude replicas she had swapped. Her face, a tableau of dawning horror, was a sight to behold. Richard Sterling, seated amongst the senior board members, watched the collection unfold. His eyes, usually discerning, now held an almost unreadable glint of satisfaction. He saw the subtle hints of the Reborn collection's spirit woven into the gala designs, a testament to Ethan's depth and consistency. As he observed Tiffany's increasingly agitated demeanor from across the room, a knowing look passed between him and his discreet personal assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Clara, who always seemed to be one step ahead. Clara gave him a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. The presentation concluded to resounding applause and enthusiastic murmurs. Board members approached Ethan, offering genuine congratulations. Ethan, her heart soaring, allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. She glanced at Tiffany, whose face was now a mask of barely suppressed rage, a volcano on the verge of eruption. Suddenly, Richard Sterling rose from his seat. The room quieted, attention shifting to him. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice, resonant and clear, filled the room. "I believe we have witnessed not only a stunning display of design, but also a glimpse into the true integrity of this company." His gaze swept over Tiffany, who visibly flinched. "Ms. Albright, a word please, and Miss Tiffany, I believe you should join us in the main conference room immediately." His tone, calm yet authoritative, left no room for protest. The summons sent a ripple of unease through the room. Tiffany's eyes darted wildly, fear finally eclipsing her fury. This wasn't just a reprimand, this was serious. As she followed Miss Albright, her head held high, but her shoulders rigid with tension, Ethan watched, a strange mix of apprehension and quiet satisfaction stirring within her. In the stark, imposing conference room, the air was thick with the weight of impending judgment. Richard Sterling sat at the head of the table, his posture radiating an almost regal authority. Ms. Albright sat stiffly to his right, her usual composure replaced by a pallor of nervous dread. Tiffany stood before them, a cornered animal, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. "Miss Tiffany," Richard's voice was devoid of emotion, "we have received information regarding irregularities concerning Ms. Ethan's gala designs, specifically the attempted exchange of her original works for inferior copies.
He gestured to Clara, who placed a tablet on the table, displaying irrefutable evidence. Timestamps of Tiffany accessing Ethan's files, security footage of her and Sarah entering the studio late at night with suspicious packages, and Lily's detailed testimony, corroborated by digital logs of the data swap. Tiffany's carefully practiced denials died in her throat. She stammered, attempted to blame Lily, even tried to accuse Ethan of framing her. But the evidence, cold and irrefutable, piled up like stones around her. Ms. Albright, seeing the writing on the wall, quickly distanced herself, confirming Tiffany's unauthorized access. "I was unaware, Mr. Sterling. I merely instructed Miss Tiffany to assist with the final preparations." Her voice was a pathetic whimper, her loyalty dissolving under pressure. Cornered, exposed, and with her career hanging by a thread, Tiffany's carefully constructed world imploded. Tears streamed down her face, a grotesque mask of despair. "It wasn't just me," she shrieked, her voice cracking with raw hysteria. They made me. They promised me everything. A new position, more power, more influence." Her confession, spewed out in a torrent of desperate words, was a shocking revelation. It was Phoenix Ascendant.
They contacted me weeks ago. They said Evergreen was stagnant, that Richard Sterling was too old-fashioned. They wanted me to destabilize the company from within, to make you look bad, Mr. Sterling. They said if your flagship gala project failed, it would create chaos, weaken your position, and they would swoop in to acquire a bigger market share. The room fell silent, the weight of Tiffany's confession hanging heavy in the air. Richard Sterling's eyes, which had been impassive, now narrowed, a flicker of cold fury in their depths. "Phoenix Ascendant," he repeated, the name of venomous whisper. So this was more than just petty office rivalry. This was corporate espionage. As the gravity of her words sunk in, Tiffany collapsed onto a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. The personal vendetta had escalated into a full-blown corporate war, a ruthless play for market dominance. This wasn't just about Ethan's designs. It was about the very soul of Evergreen Group, a testament to the cutthroat world of high fashion and even higher finance. Later that evening, after the storm had subsided and the police had been called to take Tiffany's full statement, Richard Sterling summoned Ethan to his office. The room was bathed in the soft glow of twilight, the city lights twinkling like fallen stars outside the panoramic window. The air, once thick with tension, now felt strangely calm, almost intimate. "Miss Ethan," Richard began, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "Your professionalism, your resilience, it truly saved us today. Not just the gala, but perhaps much more." He paused, his gaze fixed on the small silver locket around her neck, which had been exposed by the collar of her blouse. "That locket, may I ask about it?" Ethan, surprised, instinctively touched the cold metal. "It belonged to my mother. It's the only thing I have left of her." She hesitated, then added, "It has a strange engraving, a company logo, and the name Sterling on the back." Richard's eyes widened, a flicker of something profound, almost wistful, entering their depths. He reached into his own pocket and pulled out a worn leather-bound wallet. From it, he carefully extracted a faded photograph. It showed a young woman, strikingly beautiful and with eyes remarkably similar to Ethan's, standing beside a man with a familiar youthful earnestness, a younger Richard Sterling. In her hand, she held a locket identical to Ethan's. "Your mother," Richard said, his voice barely a whisper, laden with a tenderness Ethan had never heard. Her name was Ilara. She wasn't just a talented designer. She was a visionary and a dear friend.
We started that small investment fund together, the one whose logo is on your locket. She was the heart of it, the one who truly understood the soul of beauty. She believed in me when no one else did. A shadow of old grief passed over his face. After she was gone, I couldn't bear to continue that part of my life. I poured myself into Evergreen, built it into what it is today. But I never forgot her. Never. He looked at Ethan, his gaze filled with a complex mixture of revelation, sorrow, and burgeoning affection. You are so much like her, Ethan. Not just in talent, but in spirit. It's uncanny. Ethan felt as though the very foundations of her life had shifted. The mysterious past, the cryptic locket, the powerful tycoon, it all coalesced into a single, breathtaking truth. Her mother, the woman she barely remembered, had not only known Richard Sterling, but had been his confidant, his partner in a forgotten dream. This wasn't just a professional connection. It was a legacy, a destiny unfolding before her eyes. The revelation, delivered in the hushed intimacy of Richard's office, was a powerful, emotional crescendo. It explained the inexplicable pull she felt towards him, the sense of familiarity that had haunted her. It was a bridge connecting her to a past she never knew, to a man who now looked at her, not just a brilliant designer, but the living echo of a beloved memory.
Richard then looked at her with a gentle, yearning intensity, his eyes holding a depth of emotion she had never seen before. "Ethan," he said, his voice almost a plea, "I've watched you. I've seen your strength, your integrity, your passion. You are extraordinary, and I find myself profoundly drawn to you, not just as a designer, but as a woman." His words hung in the air, a silent, profound confession, changing the very landscape of their relationship forever. The gilded thread, woven with ambition and intrigue, now shimmered with the nascent glow of a powerful, unexpected love. The confession of Tiffany had ripped through the fabric of Evergreen Group, exposing not just petty jealousy, but a venomous undercurrent of corporate espionage. The subsequent investigation was swift and merciless. Tiffany, along with Sarah and Chloe, her loyal but ultimately complicit allies, were swiftly dismissed, their careers at Evergreen irrevocably shattered. Miss Albright, though not directly involved in the design swap, faced severe repercussions for her negligence and passive enablement, her reputation irrevocably stained. The cleanup was a stark reminder that even in the shimmering world of fashion, the shadows of betrayal could loom large. For Ethan, the immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of relief and a profound sense of vindication. The whispers ceased, replaced by murmurs of admiration. Colleagues, once distant or hostile, now approached her with newfound respect, some even offering shy apologies for their past behavior. She had faced the fire and emerged not only unscathed, but stronger, pure. But the most significant shift was in her relationship with Richard Sterling. The revelation of her mother, Alara, being his cherished friend and former partner, had stripped away the layers of formality between them, revealing a depth of connection that resonated with echoes of the past. The initial spark of attraction had ignited into a tender, burgeoning flame, fueled by shared history and mutual admiration. Their conversations now stretched late into the nights, blurring the lines between mentor and protege, boss and employee, two souls unexpectedly tethered by destiny. Richard spoke of Alara with a gentle nostalgia, painting a picture of a woman with an uncanny artistic vision and a spirit as bright as Ethan's. He recounted how Alara had instilled in him the belief that true design was not just about aesthetics, but about storytelling, about imbuing fabric with emotion. Ethan, in turn, found herself opening up,
sharing her dreams, her fears, the quiet ache of growing up without knowing her mother's story. With each shared memory, each quiet confession, the bonds between them tightened, becoming an intricate tapestry of shared history and blossoming affection. Their relationship, however, did not escape the keen eyes of the corporate world. Whispers of a different kind began to circulate. Whispers of a romance between the powerful CEO and the rising star designer. Some, particularly old guard board members, viewed it with suspicion, worried about conflicts of interest, about the integrity of the company being compromised by personal entanglements. The very gilded thread that had woven Ethan into Evergreen now seemed to bind her to a public scrutiny she had never anticipated. One afternoon, a formidable group of senior board members, led by the stern, silver-haired Mr. Harrison, summoned Richard to an impromptu meeting. "Richard," Mr. Harrison began, his voice laced with thinly veiled disapproval, "concerns have been raised. Your increasingly personal association with Miss Ethan. While her talent is undeniable, this situation could present complications, questions of favoritism, of corporate governance. It's simply not appropriate for the CEO of a publicly traded company to be seen in such a light with a junior designer." Richard, usually composed, felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He was a man accustomed to wielding power, to commanding respect. But this was different. This was about Ethan, about a connection he cherished. "My relationship with Miss Ethan," he stated calmly, "is founded on mutual respect and her undeniable contribution to this company. She has saved the gala, exposed a major corporate espionage plot, and brought a fresh vision that has significantly boosted our market value. Her performance speaks for itself." "Performance is one thing, Richard," Mr. Harrison retorted, his voice rising. "But perception is another. Public perception, shareholder confidence. We have a responsibility to uphold the highest standards of professionalism." Richard knew this was a critical juncture. He could back down, sacrifice his nascent relationship with Ethan for the sake of corporate optics, or he could stand firm, not just for Ethan, but for the very principle of meritocracy he believed in. His mind flashed to Ilara, to her unwavering belief in authenticity, and then to Ethan, her quiet strength in the face of relentless hostility. "Gentlemen," Richard said, his voice now imbued with an unshakable resolve, "I understand your concerns, but I assure you, Miss Ethan's advancement will be based solely on her extraordinary talent and dedication. As for our personal relationship, that is a matter separate from corporate affairs, a matter I intend to pursue with the utmost integrity and respect. I believe in her, not just as a designer, but as a human being, and I am prepared to stake my own reputation and, if necessary, my position on that belief." His words hung in the air, a declaration that left no room for doubt. It was a moment of true defiance, a risk he was willing to take for Ethan and for himself. Meanwhile, Ethan continued to flourish. The success of the Grand Gala collection was resounding. Orders poured in, media features highlighted her innovative designs, and Evergreen Group's stock soared. She was no longer just the new girl, or Richard Sterling's protege. She was Ethan, a name synonymous with visionary design. Projects of increasing importance landed on her desk, each a testament to her proven capabilities. She mentored new designers, embodying the very resilience and dedication she had once fought for. The creative studio, once a place of subtle hostility, now hummed with collaborative energy, transformed by her quiet leadership. However, the deepest conflict remained within Ethan herself. Could she truly reconcile her soaring career with a relationship with Richard? The whispers, though softened, still existed. Was she being truly recognized for her talent, or was it always, subtly, linked to him? This internal struggle, a silent battle for self-worth independent of external validation, was the final frontier of her journey. One evening, As they shared a quiet dinner after a long day of meetings, Richard sensed her internal conflict. "Ethan," he said, reaching across the table to gently take her hand, "I know what you're thinking, the whispers, the doubts. But you are more than just my partner. You are a force. Your talent, your spirit, they shine independently. Always remember that." Ethan looked into his eyes, seeing not just the powerful CEO, but the kind, understanding man who saw her for who she truly was. "I know," she whispered, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. "It's just, I fought so hard to stand on my own 2 feet. Sometimes it feels like this adds another layer of complexity." Richard squeezed her hand. "It adds another strength, Ethan. We build each other up. That's what a true partnership is about, in life and in love." The ultimate culmination of Ethan's journey came not in a grand gala, but in a quiet, private moment. Months later, as Evergreen Group prepared for its next major milestone, the launch of a new global sub-brand, Richard called a special board meeting.
He announced a groundbreaking new structure. Ethan would be appointed as the creative director of Evergreen Group, a position of unparalleled influence and autonomy. But that wasn't all. He then, with a profound look towards Ethan, made another announcement that sent a ripple of astonished whispers through the room. He was stepping down. Not entirely, but he would transition to chairman of the board, allowing him more time for philanthropic ventures and, implicitly, for his personal life. And, with a soft smile that was reserved only for her, he invited her to join him in a partnership that would extend far beyond the boardroom. The revelation sent shockwaves through the corporate world, but for Ethan, it was the final, defining moment of her liberation. She had not only achieved her professional dreams, but had done so on her own terms, earning every step of her ascent. Richard, in his unwavering belief in her, had given her the ultimate gift, the freedom to truly soar. The grand gala that year, Ethan's second as creative director, was a triumph. The designs were bolder, more confident, echoing the newfound strength and serenity within her. As she stood on stage, receiving a standing ovation, her eyes sought out Richard in the crowd. He was watching her, his face alight with pride, his gaze a silent promise of their shared future. The gilded thread, once a symbol of hidden connections and corporate intrigue, had truly blossomed into a shining testament to resilience, integrity, and a love that transcended expectations. Ethan, the girl who once sketched on a whiteboard to save her dream, had not only resurrected a failed project, but had also woven a life of unparalleled success and profound happiness. Her story was a vibrant tapestry, proving that true artistry lies not just in what you create, but in the life you dare to live. A message to our esteemed audience. Dear listeners, as the Gilded Thread concludes, we hope Ethan's journey has resonated deeply within you. Her story is a testament to the power of resilience in the face of adversity, the unwavering strength of integrity when surrounded by malice, and the surprising beauty of love found in the most unexpected places. It reminds us that true success is not just about achieving your dreams, but about staying true to yourself, even when the world tries to dim your light. What reflections does Ethan's journey spark in you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with those who need a reminder of the power of the human spirit.